Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast Heart to Heart with Essie Faye. We are continuing our journey, our series and our journey entitled "Separation and Divorce in Faith Communities." And so, I'm super excited to have a woman of God and a woman of faith as our guest. She is powerful. She is knowledgeable. She's educated and well educated and well trained in her profession. And so I'm really excited to have her to share her story today of triumph, of course, of loss, but also of triumph and of victory. And so I want you all to just welcome to the podcast, as I welcome to the podcast, Dr. Colette Townsend-Chambers. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Townsend-Chambers.
Thank you for having me, Essie.
Um,
I'm happy to be here. Can
Thank you
you
so
hear
much.
me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can
Okay.
hear you perfectly. So I'm wondering if you can just give us a synopsis of your background and just tell us a little bit more about you. I'm excited to have you on. But if you can just tell us a little more about you and your profession.
Sure, yes. So as far as we met based on the church in the church, at 9 years old, my family came to Bethlehem in Chicago, Bethlehem Healing Temple, with Bishop Poole as the pastor, and I believe the wife was Mary Poole, and mom did traveling and everything with them. And then we left there and went to Emmanuel Healing Temple with Bishop Kirkwood. So my background was inner city kid growing up on the west side of Chicago, Garfield Park. Only thing I've ever really known as far back as I can remember is church. Church and more church, right? And so church was pushed and education in our home was pushed, maybe more so than some other homes in the church. But that was one of the non-negotiables. We had to go to school. We had to get education. Um, and so that's pretty much my early childhood. Moved to Mississippi for a while with some friends and continued working there, going to school there. Went to HBCU Alcorn for a little bit. Came back to Chicago um, and got married and proceeded to have a child. We were blended family. My husband had a child prior. I adopted a son, and then we had our daughter. And so we proceeded to settle down and, go about the daily trappings of life, working in church and ministry and everything like that. And so that's pretty much what it was. I've always been interested in nursing and went into nursing straight out of high. As a matter of fact, when I graduated high school, I was a licensed practical nurse at 18. So
Wow.
always had nursing, always, focused on school. And that was it. So I had no time for boyfriends and no time for running around. It was straight school and church all the time.
Wow. So it sounds like we have a lot in common. For our listeners and viewers, I actually know Dr. Colette, from church, of course. I've admired her from afar, and so I was like, wow, just checking in on Facebook, and so we found out that we have really a lot in common. So I was like, hey, come on, I want to invite you to come on and to our podcast because I know that she is a woman of faith and a woman of prayer and just her background, in the church and just also in pursuit of education. We have a lot in common. But I wanted to, learn more about her story. And, she's come on to share a bit about her story with you all. So I'm really excited to hear more and just to dive on in. So can you tell us, everything was all about school was all about your career.
Mhm.
Um, the facts, like how long were you married at the time of divorce? And you mentioned having children, and what was the reason um, for your divorce?
So yeah, I think growing up in a church, from my estimation, was we were really taught to just not be unequally yoked. So the main thing that was pushed is you had to have a partner that was not just Christian but saved, baptized, spirit filled. All that had to be the key. There never really was actually any emphasis on education, their political background, like all the questions that you would ask, somebody probably in today's time. We didn't really do that then. It was like, okay, are they saved? Do they have a job? Cool, you're good, right? That was it. Not really thinking that before you get married, you know, it was more to it than being saved. When you think about unequally yoked, as I said, does this person have an education, the same level or a similar level? Do they have any money saved in the bank, or just the questions that you need to ask? And so we were married. So of course we met those qualifications. We were both saved. At the time, I'm trying to remember, I was at Emmanuel at the time. And for listeners that don't have the contextual background that we do from church, it's going to sound really strange. And so I'll preface it by saying we were taught that we couldn't even go on a date without a chaperone. And here I was, 26 years old. And I know it probably sounds like I was a unicorn, but I was just talking to someone else. I think I was talking to Pastor Flowers just recently and saying that I remember there was an NBA player that was a virgin when he got married. And so when I tell people my story, they're like, you're lying, you're kidding, you cannot be telling the truth. But in fact, I was a virgin at 26. This was the first man that I was ever intimate with. And so it was on so many levels. It was just weird, right? But thinking, well, this must be God's plan. This is how I was taught. This is how it needs to be. And so we were married, and we stayed married 18 years. But I think, Essie, that I knew from the very beginning that there were going to be issues based on what I said about being unequally yoked, because we had different ideologies. We were raised differently. My father was heavily involved in politics. He was involved in social justice. My parents had a store. My mother had a clothing store. My father had a grocery store on Madison. And so they were well connected in the community and everything like that. And so if I'm honest and I think back, my father did not want me to be married. I don't think to anybody, but he just was not convinced that this guy was the right person for me. So yeah, after 20 years, I said I was going to make it till my daughter turned 18, because we started having problems. But in the church, it was like, put on this really, you pray through it, you push through it. Everybody has problems. So even when people find out somebody might be finding out today now for the first time that I've been divorced since 2019. Because I kind of lost track with everybody from my hometown church. And so very few people knew. But by the grace of God, we made it through. So what you said, what caused divorce? And I really believe it was the fact that we were never on the same page. I was always the driven one, kept going back to school. Are you okay with me going back to school? Yeah, I'm cool with it. But it really wasn't that genuine, like, yeah, let's, me and you against the world. That's what I was missing. I didn't really have that teamwork mentality. It almost was like a competition, right? Everybody knew my mother. If you think about my mom, she was the outgoing one. My dad was the quiet one. So essentially, we kind of mimicked that. We kind of did the same thing. He was very laid back, very passive. I was very outgoing and, who I was. And so I think what happened was at some point, maybe, I can't speak for him, but at some point it might have been is that, she makes more money than I do. And it was always that bone of contention, like that awkwardness. It wasn't on me. Like, I never emasculated. I was like, okay, you're the man, you're this, that, and the other. But it was that I made more money. And so it seemed to be a issue, constantly an issue. And so finally, it just became the point there was a lot of anger, wanting to go back to Chicago, because by this time we had moved to I think we had moved to Mississippi, and then we left Mississippi and came to North Carolina. And it was primarily me constantly wanting to make the moves, me saying, I'm a nurse, but I'm gonna go get a real estate license, because always thinking this is how my parents trained us to constantly think about multiple streams of income, think about your legacy, what are you gonna leave your children? So I was always driven, striving, trying to figure out, okay, what to do next, how to make things better, how to make things easier. But that wasn't so we were on different wavelengths. And his thing was, I'm gonna work a job, I'm gonna come home, I'm gonna watch the news and steak and potatoes, and I'm cool. So unequally yoked, like in so many different ways. Finally, so the straw, I guess, that, as you say, would break the camel's back is that I finally just said, hey, let's do counseling. We would do it, we would stop. I couldn't get, really a commitment to finish, to go to counseling. It was like, so one weekend I was just praying about it. I said, this is going to be kind of it. I went away for my birthday and I left $100 under the mouse pad. I was paying for the counseling. And I said, did you go? And he said, no. And I said, why not? He said, I just didn't want to. And I knew then, what's the point, right? So I did pray about it. And I said, if you don't want to stay, we don't want to work on it, I release you. You're free. I don't want to, I don't want to be holding you back if you don't want to be here. And so that's how it ended. It was just like we had a conversation and I said, you're free to go. And he left. And it was amicable. There were no pots thrown, no guns pulled, no knives thrown, nothing like that. It was just like, I'm out. And it was open. So I know people might have been expecting a little more.
You
So
know, I think, first of all, thank you for your transparency, about the entire, you know, your experience, because you've said so much. I mean, there's so much to just pull out of what you said, and I just kind of want to just take it slow, because you
okay.
said so much, even for singles and those who are desiring to be married. And I
Right.
kind of want to go back to the whole not dating thing. Now, a
Mm-hmm.
lot more people are deciding to kiss dating goodbye. A lot more, and it's not this day and age. And this was what 25, at least 25 years ago.
Yep.
Where that was the mindset in a lot of faith communities, that you shouldn't be dating too many people. And some people, even some communities, even said don't date, just court. And so now it's almost like coming full circle, where most people are saying, "Oh, I'm not dating. I'm going to court instead. I'm going to pick
Mm.
this one person, and we're going to date exclusively to get married. I don't want to date for a
Right.
long time." And this is not just in faith communities. This is at large in the world.
Right.
The conversation has moved to, "Oh, I'm not playing any games. Let's just court." And I really love the fact that you said, you missed an opportunity, because I felt like that as well,
Mm.
in my
Yeah.
prior marriage, that I missed the opportunity to really explore not only that other person, but explore who I was in the dating scene,
Right.
because dating is not only
Mm.
for finding somebody, it's for finding yourself too, discovering your
Right.
likes and dislikes, discovering
Absolutely.
quirks about you, that will
Yeah.
help you to really find out, okay, do I even really like this person? Are we equally
Right.
yoked? That's another thing.
That's
And I
it.
mean, it's so key what you said. You're a believer, I'm a believer, but it's far deeper
Hmm.
than that.
Right.
Mentally, are we on the same page mentally, intellectually?
Exactly.
Are we both, emotionally intelligent? Are we both mature?
Right.
It's so much to be explored. Beyond, are you a believer? Do you believe in Jesus
Hmm.
Christ? Are you
Right.
spirit filled? Have you been born again? It's so much more than that. It's not just, oh, you're a
Exactly.
Muslim and I'm a Christian. And so I want to shout out to all of these single
Hmm.
people who are
Hmm.
desiring a mate, to caution you, to have a broader understanding, a deeper understanding of what it means
Right.
to be, equally yoked with someone. Not only
Absolutely. And
just
that,
faith.
yeah, I was going to say that's a key point. And I saw something. since I've been divorced since 2019 and finding myself, speaking to those folks that are looking to get married, like you just were saying, um, I saw something today that I shared on Facebook that really was profound. It was called a Women of Impact. I don't know if you've heard of this individual, but I also listened to several men relationship coaches because I want to know from a man's point of view. I watch Tony Gaskins on YouTube, and I also watch another gentleman called, his name is Pastor R.C. Blakes, and they talk about, you know, various different topics. But what I found today was, it said, before you get married, discuss bills, discuss parenting styles, credit, debt, religion. Like, half of this list I didn't even talk about with this individual, right? It was just, are you saved and in church? So I didn't know what their beliefs were, what their expectations were. It talks about childhood trauma, financial expectations. What are your
Yes.
finances? What is your credit score? Like, oh, that's too personal. Don't ask that. Well, my God, you're going to lay down and make babies with this person. You need to know what their credit score is. You need
Yes.
to know their mental health history, their family health history. Do they have diabetes in their family? Is it cancer in their family? Do
Yes.
they have bucket lists? Do they want to travel the world? So one of what's their
Yes.
political views and anything else that comes to mind? Like, have they ever had an STD or STI, whatever?
Oh,
And
yes.
as being a nurse, I had no problem in asking these things, but I just don't remember if I ever did STI. I just think it was like, oh, I'm so happy to be chosen, because my friends had started teasing me. And I'm going to put him on blast. Vincent Kirkwood told me, he's like, oh, by the time you get married, this is the dad now, not the son. By the time you get married, we're going to run Christmas lights up the front of you and down the back of you. Like, you're going to be so old. That was the running joke. But now people are not rushing into marriage. They're 26 is probably still young. But yeah, I would say for any young person, make a list. Make a list, ask everything you want to ask as soon as you possibly can. Because if COVID taught us nothing else, is that life is short. And I don't have 3 months to play games with you, 6 months, a year, right? I need to know, like you
Yes.
said.
And I think yes, make your list. Yes, make your list. But to your note of lack of experience, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
sometimes because you don't have the experience, you don't even know the questions to ask.
Exactly.
Sometimes you ask questions because I was guilty. I asked these questions, but I didn't ask the right questions. I
Right.
had a whole list, but because of my inexperience, I didn't ask the right questions. Girl, I was not asking
Right.
the questions I should have been asked. And then when you get the answers, you don't even know what to do with those answers. You know what I mean? Like if
Right.
I mean, it's just so like, people can tell you, girl, write a list. Girl, ask the
Right.
question. You asking all these questions, but when you're getting the answers because of inexperience, you might not even know, oh, that's a red flag. Oh,
Right.
is he really telling the truth? Like in my case, I asked all the questions. This man, he sat up there and blatantly lied for most
Right.
of the questions. And
Mm-hmm.
so, but for me, because I didn't have the knowledge, and some questions I didn't
Right.
ask, I asked some really good questions. But some
Okay.
questions I didn't
What were
know
some of the
ask because
questions that you asked?
one of the questions that I asked was, "Have you ever been in a homosexual relationship?"
Right.
Um, and
Okay.
that's a
That's a
question
good
that a
one.
lot of people will not. Yes, it's a very good. Have you ever been in a relationship? Have you ever had a homosexual experience? And a lot of people are afraid to ask that, or they don't
Mm-hmm.
ask. That's one of those questions where you wouldn't think to ask that. And I'm
Right.
like, no, I need to ask this question
And
because of the time in which.
you may need to be even more specific because your perception of a homosexual experience might be different than someone else's. Have you ever
Yes,
kissed a man? Have you ever touched a
yes.
man?
Have you ever
You may
wanted
have
to?
to break it
Look,
down.
have you ever wanted to? I mean, and I think
Exactly.
that's a big question. But the other thing that I didn't do at that time, and I learned from that, I asked for salary,
Right.
financial status. I asked for
Right.
um credit score, but I didn't ask for proof.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm
There you
saying? Like
go. Hmm.
I trusted that this person was going to be honest. They were a
Right.
believer. They were in the faith.
Yep.
But I should have said, "Hey, can you bring your, your fight, your score? Can you pull up your score
Right.
right now?
Let's
Can I
bring
see?
them together.
Can you bring
Yeah.
me two check stubs, three check stubs
Right.
of your latest?"
Right.
I mean, I should have done that, but I asked the questions. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's so much that you have to really get into. And then to your point, no, I don't have time to play with you, but I need time to explore what it
Right.
is you're saying. I need time to
Right.
really pay attention and observe your patterns.
Right.
Because people are
Oh,
rushing to get
absolutely.
married, running to jump
Well,
into somebody's bed, and then
right.
you haven't even known that person for. And I date.
So let me quantify when I say you don't have time, because I was talking to a gentleman today, and he's like, "Wow, you're very detailed. You have a lot of questions." I said, "This is just the first process. You got to
Right,
get through
right.
these questions before you get to the next step." You know,
Yes,
and the guy Tony Gaskin says you should be talking to someone at a minimum of 10 hours on the phone, getting to know before you just jump and go to the date and get all the physical and all of that. You need to be picking their brain. And I'm like, you know what? Now I know. At the time, we didn't have all these relationship gurus. It was just God, the pastor, and the Bible. And the Bible was this and
mhm,
thou and they, and it was like, okay, what are they really saying to me? You know.
right.
So I your point is taken. You ask the questions and you watch for those red flags. Do their eyes buck? Do they start sweating? Do they start looking off to the left or to the right or whatever? You need to watch for that and don't let up. I know you don't want to interrogate anybody, but you kind of have to in this day and
Yes,
age. You
yes.
have to.
In this day and age, you really have to do a lot of digging. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
yeah. The other thing I noticed, and I absolutely, I'm so happy that you shared, the details of how your relationship ended, because I feel in a lot of times, in faith communities, there is the idea that there has to be this big blow up, or there has
Mm-hmm.
to be infidelity, or there has to be
Right.
something that's just unbearable
Mm-hmm.
in order
Mm-hmm.
to end a marriage.
Right.
And I mean, for me, like you said, being unequally yoked, that's huge. You cannot
Yeah.
walk. The scripture says you can't walk together unless you agree. So if you're not in
Right.
agreement, it's impossible. Not only that, but if you're not in
Yeah.
agreement and your partner is unwilling to get to that, do whatever it takes to get to that agreement, it's really
Right.
nothing that you can do. There's
Yeah.
like
There has to be commitment. Yeah. There has to be that commitment from both parties. And there are people that will say, just pray about it. God can change them. God is
Mhm.
not going to make somebody change if they don't want to be changed, Essie. They have to
Yes.
want to be a better husband. They have to want to be a better wife.
You're preaching to the
Praying
choir.
together. Yeah, praying
Preaching to
together
the
is
choir.
key. We didn't do that. We started with it, but I felt like I really was pulling this person through this marriage, like dragging them, kicking and screaming. And even when you talk about, raising children, if one person doesn't have a college education and the other one does, you just assume that your child is going to college. But it really needs to be a plan where both parents say, hey, this is what our expectations are. So when we got to that
Yes.
point where the children started getting ready, it became contention because it's like, I'm saying you're going to college, and the other party is saying, well, maybe they just want to work. But we've been planning for this, and they're smart enough to. So
Mhm.
those kinds of problems you need to know from the beginning. Okay, if you don't
Yes.
have a college degree, are you going to put forth the effort to try to get, some certificate, or so these children can emulate, right? and not say, well, I don't have a college degree and I made it out okay. That's good for you. But as you see, look at the pandemic. There are people with, you know, higher degrees of education that could not get a job, right? They went through all this schooling and they got all these student loans. And thank God, my testimony is I never had to take a loan. I went all the way through, I think I have
Hallelujah.
5 degrees and I never took a loan
That is a
because
blessing.
I, every job that I had, I made sure they had a tuition reimbursement program. And I would encourage any young person to do that, right? I started working and my jobs paid for my, the only time that I ever had to pay was when I finished the last few years of my doctorate. I got my doctorate of nursing practice in 2020, and I might have paid $3,000 because my job only paid for 3 courses and I had to pay for a little bit. So I would definitely encourage somebody, you know, marriage is always there. Like you said, learn yourself, find yourself. I traveled with the church. I went to conventions. We would go to conventions. I would rent cars. I lived my best life before I got married. I did all of that. And so I would encourage anybody before marriage to explore, travel the world as much as you can. And I think I follow, I think it's your brother, um, the photographer.
Troy.
Like Troy is living his best life. I don't think he's married yet, right?
He just got married.
Okay, okay, awesome. Congratulations. But something like that, I mean, and he's older now, so he's got to kind of get all of that out of the system. Not really out your system, but you know, do some things, find yourself
Yeah,
before you settle down and build a life with someone else. That's
I
key.
totally, yes, I totally agree. I totally agree with that 100% because, you know, get out there and live your life. Find out who you are, you know, before you
Mm-hmm.
try to jump into a relationship. Because if you know who you are, then your desires and your the mate that you desire will be clearer to you. You know, you'll
Mm-hmm.
know what you want and what you don't want, you know, and give
Absolutely.
it time. Give it time because time will truly tell. I'm telling you,
Oh
time
yeah.
will truly tell.
You need to put
Um,
them in those situations where you're gonna find out what they're
yes,
made of, right?
yes,
And
honey, yes.
if you, so when I said we don't have time, you ask those questions. You basically, I'm a professor, I'm an instructor, right? And so usually, if you think about it, when you go to a class, and I don't do this, but I know a lot of faculty that do. Look to the left, look to the right. The person sitting on this side is not going to be here because what's going to happen? They're going to weed out those low
Mhm.
performing people. And it's almost the
Right.
same way when you're dating. You need to talk to this person, hit them with your questions. Okay, they don't meet this non-negotiable. Okay, they do drugs. Okay, they got an STD. Okay, once
Mhm.
you weed them out, then you move on to the next. That person that gets your time and energy has met all of those qualifications, then you can proceed on. And then you can start, as you say, courting, because now you have enough to know, okay, they've met the basic minimum. Now let's see where we're going with this. I knew none of that. I did none of that. We had like 2 dates. We went to an Italian restaurant. We had a chaperone, and everything was said that I wanted to hear. What do you like in a man? Oh, I like somebody to bring me flowers and hold open the door. Well, my goodness, if you tell them everything to do, they're going to do it. But
Mhm.
that may not be their genuine heart or the true person. They send their representative, and that true person doesn't come until later, right?
Oh yeah.
I know you have some
Yeah,
more
that's
questions.
yes, I do. But this is such a good conversation that's needed. It's so needed. I mean, I'm really enjoying the conversation because the fact of the matter is that person does need to be put in those situations that
Mm-hmm.
will bring out, bring out whatever you're looking for. You know what I mean? Like if you're, for example, I
Yeah.
know there was our former pastor would say, my former pastor would say, make him mad. And I say, you know what? That's right. You need to see
Mm-hmm.
every side of this person. What do they do when they're angry? What do they do when
And
they're
you
jealous?
and you don't
What
even
do
have to
they
make them
do?
mad. You don't have to do it.
Yes,
Life. Find out what they
yes,
do in life. I didn't get
yes.
my paycheck today. Are you gonna curse
Yep.
the boss out?
Or yes, or pay attention. That's the thing. Pay attention. But the problem is when you don't know what to pay attention to.
Right.
Come on, somebody.
Yeah.
When you don't know what to pay attention to, then
Yeah.
you lost. Like
The
you're
only
just
thing you're looking, if the only thing you're looking for is that they speak in a tongue, and I said a tongue because we know people can fake that. Do they
right,
speak in
right.
a tongue? Do they pay their tithes? Do they show up for every service? Right?
Mhm.
It's so much more to it, right? Um, and that
Or
and
do
that
they
is
teach
so
it in
key.
do they teach
Here's
it in a
here's
certain
one
way?
thing. Here's one thing that I was about to say. How do they treat other people? So when you
Yes,
go to the restaurant, is he, hey, snapping his finger and, like, wait a minute, they're not your slave. You don't talk to people like that. You don't treat people like
Mhm.
that.
Yes,
When you find a guy or a woman that is just nasty to people, they're not going to just be nasty to other people. They're going to be nasty to you too at some
yes.
point.
And
So that's a good point.
then do people like them? I think that's
Right.
such an
Oh,
overlooked thing.
yes.
Do people like them? Do
Do
people
they
like
have
them?
friends?
Do
Do
they
they
have
have
friends?
friends?
Yes, that was my next point.
Can they tell you the name of 5 friends? Do you see them out with people? That was
Yes.
another one of my, in hindsight is 2020. I thought,
Ooh,
oh, he's a
good.
quiet guy. It's going to be perfect. He's not going to run the streets. He's not going to hang out. I'm just going to have him to myself. And oh my God, you
Mhm.
know, no, you don't have any friends. That's a problem because, as you said, emotional intelligence, talking
Yes.
to other people, you can get to find out. Can they talk to all varying levels of people? Can they talk to a
Yes.
child? Can they talk to an elderly person? Can they talk? Can they interact with educated people? I think Robert Frost has a poem that talks about what it takes to be a man, my son. If you can walk with the wealthy or talk to you have to be a well-rounded person. And it's really going to be hard to find a person that has that street knowledge that is that well-rounded. And so I don't want people to think, oh, well, she's bougie. They have to have a doctorate degree. Not necessarily, because I know people with PhDs that act dumber than a box of rocks. So it's not just a degree.
Mhm.
It's okay, you have the book knowledge, but do you know how to put that emotional intelligence with it? Or are you going to throw a tantrum
Yes.
every time you can't have your way?
And I think too, even if you fall in love with someone who doesn't have the same educational level as you, but just that
Right,
they're open and encouraging about
right,
pursuit of knowledge. They may not
right,
have gone to, 2 universities, but they're a
mhm,
lifelong learner. They're
right,
constantly reading or listening to audiobooks or, trying
exactly,
to be better and grow better. And it's just having that mentality that, you know what, I'm going to continue learning. And not only that, I'm
right,
going to support you as you pursue the things that you're
exactly,
passionate about. You don't want to get
exactly,
somebody that wants to hold you back or somebody that's
right,
competing with you. That's another
right,
thing. It's just so much that can be said about being equally yoked, and it's so
mm,
super important. I don't think we give enough attention to that
right.
element. I don't think we give enough attention in faith communities to
Right.
those.
I hope that that's changing, with podcasts like yours. And I hope that it's changing so that if there are pastors, if there are therapists, counselors that are listening, this is very, very important to understand. Being unequally yoked is more than are they in the faith community, right? All of
Mhm.
these questions,
Yes.
do they aspire? Do they have, or are they just saying what you want to hear? Do you like to read? Yes, I like to read. Okay, what's the follow up question? Name me 5 of your favorite books.
Yes.
I think they asked Sarah Palin that, and she couldn't answer that question. Somebody when she was running for office. I don't want to get political with folks, but if just like an artist, if I say, "Oh, Essie, I love your music," but I can't name you one song, I might not be telling the truth. So
Right.
if you say to this person, "I like to read," well, what's your favorite book? Okay, Toni Morrison, The Bluest Eye. Okay, and I can name, everybody's gonna say the Bible, right? Everybody's gonna say the Bible. So yeah,
Right. Right.
that's a favorite book. But give me the names of some other titles, whether they
Yeah.
be A Million Little Lies or whatever, Oprah's book club or something. You should be able to name, if you're a reader,
Yes.
several books. You should be able to, The Long Walk Home, or, who is Nelson Mandela? Who are these, if you can't, that's just kind of basic civil government type of questions. You can't answer those, that's a problem. No
And
matter what age you are.
not only that too, it's like, what are you reading now? If you're a reader,
Mhm.
you're going to be reading something. Like
Exactly.
it's okay. So what do you read now? Like
Yeah.
I ask people that all the time. What you read? Okay, you're a
Right.
reader. If you say you're a reader, you should be reading something. If you say you're a writer, you should be writing something.
Exactly.
It's. I mean, at the moment, presently. So it's
That's
just
right.
to consider. So we're just shouting out to all of the singles that are out there. Please do not kiss dating goodbye.
Right.
Please do not kiss dating goodbye. Get
Hey,
out
I'm
there.
single. I'm single. I'm in the
Yes, you
process.
single. Get out there and date. I have a book recommendation. This book absolutely changed my life, changed my
Uh-huh.
perspective. Dr. Henry Cloud. It is called How to Get a Date Worth Keeping. Have you
Right. I'm
how
writing it down.
how to get a date worth keeping? Listen, y'all, this book. Oh my God, this man is preaching. He is
Okay.
um he is how to get a date worth keeping. He is let me write this. He is absolutely amazing. I love his books. Um he's a Christian psychologist. This
Okay.
book is absolutely amazing. It guarantees you in 6 months, if you follow this plan, that you're gonna find the person that you need to find. The date worth keeping.
Wow.
The
Okay.
system is very clear. So basically, the premise of the book is that we're asking God, Lord, send me somebody. Why am I single? I've been
Hmm.
waiting all this time, and yet we are refusing to date. We're refusing to
Right.
do the work necessary,
Right.
to actually find somebody. We're saying like, Lord, I'm waiting on you. Why am I still single? Well, what work have
Yeah.
you done? And so he
So
talks
would
about faith.
the scripture apply here then, as he faith without works is dead?
Yes.
So we actually do have to do some work. We have to fix
Yes.
ourselves up and clean ourselves up, and
Yes.
be put our best foot forward, right? That's the works that we need
Yes.
to do.
That's the
Gotcha.
word. But look, but listen, he gets into the work, honey. He gets into the work. He's like, go where the men are.
Okay.
He's like, okay, you like
Yep.
but you're constantly in situations where there are no men. You're like,
Right.
okay, you're going to the same spots,
Can I
and there
tell
are no
you
men
that
there.
is true? Can I tell you? I
And
just
that's
bought a
true.
motorcycle. I bought a motorcycle 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and people like, oh, it's not a real motorcycle. It's a three-wheeler. I go 90 miles an hour on the highway. It's a motorcycle. Okay, by all intents and purposes. I
It's
do wear a helmet.
nice.
We're not really, but I said that to your point is that I had to join a motorcycle club. And guess who else rides motorcycles?
Oh
Men
yes,
with two
men,
legs.
honey.
Men with two legs. Now there are
Yes,
women in there as well. Now people are going to look at this and they're like, "Oh, they're chasing men." No, you are putting yourself in, even at the grocery store, even at the gym. And one of the things that,
yes,
like I
yes,
said, I put in the chat. Tony Gaskins and Pastor R.C. Blakes talk about stop walking around looking all sour faced and frowned up. The man trying to look at you and you looking like you mad at the world. Well,
yes.
they're not gonna want to talk to you. I mean, if you legit
Colette,
single,
come
so
on. This is
hey,
listen. This is exactly what Dr. Henry Cloud is talking about. He's like, first of all, go where the men are, And he
Right.
said, look nice. Go with me now, look
Right.
nice, smile.
Right.
And he said, give your number out. Basically, he said, let people know that you're available. And
Well, so
so,
here's what I
so
found.
sweet.
I
I'm,
don't give my real number out.
oh
I give
no,
a
of course,
I
not
give
your
a
real
Google,
number.
yeah, I
Yes,
give
give
A
your,
Google Voice
yes,
number
yes, give a Google Voice
because
number.
some of these rascals, man, they'll blow your phone up and won't take no for an answer. And
Yes,
it's
and that
like,
is definitely being smart.
yeah,
Getting a Google number because you can actually screen the numbers or whatever. But the thing is, even if you give out an email address that you don't,
right,
even if you give out some form of,
right,
if if
exactly,
just to say, you know what, I'm open.
right,
Even if you call me, I might not ever call you back. But what I
right,
noticed was it opened me up. The more I
right,
started to share my info, like not my personal information, but saying like, hey, if you want
yeah,
to go out for coffee, give me a
right.
call. If you want to, the more I
Mhm.
opened myself up to that, then I don't know. It just seemed like more men started coming to me. I'm not lying.
Well,
I'm being
you
100%.
it's that law of attraction. You're open, you're friendly, and not only that, you kind of get to sharpen your skills. Iron sharpens iron, right? So if you're
Mm-hmm.
talking to different men, as you first started out by saying, we didn't have the experience. We didn't know what to ask. We didn't know what to look for. The more that we talk to various different men, we learn that even the ones that are pious and religious and are pastors, you will be surprised of the preachers and pastors that are on dating apps. And, you
A
know,
man is a man.
they
And that's
want, they know what they
yes,
want.
yes, they want that
Um,
compatibility. They want
and
that.
so they always, and I'm just very frank, and you often hear, and I don't know about in the faith community, but it probably has pervaded over, come over to the church, where they always say they want a lady in the streets and a freak in the sheets or something like that. Everybody's
Yes,
grown on here, right?
yes.
So you may not get a freak in the sheets if she haven't been around the world. But then
Uh,
again, think about if you get a freak in the sheets, that means that she done probably been with more than 2 or 3 men. So you got to choose what you want,
come on, let's keep it real.
right? You got to
If you're
choose.
getting somebody who's in the church, you ain't getting no freak in the streets. We
Well,
are
I
the
don't know
sheets. You're
now.
not
I
getting.
wait
Well,
now. Beyonce
you're
said
right.
a church
But I'm
girl,
talking about.
so
But I'm talking about for real somebody who has
right,
been saving themselves, who has been,
right,
if you're with someone who, now I'm not talking about people that's having sex in the church and doing all that. I'm
right,
talking about if you're with someone who is committed to saving
right.
themselves for their husband, then you're
Yeah.
not going to get someone who is experienced.
And let me bring the point about, I don't know how much time we have. It's
Go
getting to
ahead.
be my bedtime,
Time,
but
right.
let
Time
me
is
bring
the way.
the point. It's 9:43 here in South Carolina. The point that I want to make clear is just because I am 56 now does not mean that I'm going to lower my standards or my boundaries. I have no intention of being sexually active with anybody before I'm married. Now, I know for some people, when they get a certain age, they feel like, the faith community, that doesn't apply. I have to try things out. And I think the way that we're talking, somebody might get the impression, oh, they encourage people to go out there and look for men and try men out. No, I'm not saying try on the shoe before you buy it.
Yes. Right.
Because here's one thing that Bishop Bell, I remember he said, everybody has the same equipment, they just use it differently. So what are you trying something out before you buy it? Now, as long as the person doesn't have any health problems, no ED, no erectile dysfunction, they got all their organs. And here's the other question when we speak about, because my dissertation, my paper was on LGBT healthcare, because despite what a person chooses for their gender identity, as a healthcare provider, we need to be non-biased. We need to care for them. And so, but one of the things that people need to ask, and it's going to be hard, were you born a female? Were you born a male?
Yes.
Because when I tell you that the surgeries are so good nowadays that they can split it open and flip it around, and you, a man, will not know. But when they find out, um, they, if that's what they want, so be it. Good for you. I'm happy for you. Everybody deserves a chance to love. But if you get surprised and marry somebody, you know, and like you said, they could tell you anything. You might need to go back and get some records if you're really concerned. If there's any
Yes,
red flags, you
yes.
see an Adam's apple or whatever the case is, you should investigate,
And
because this is somebody that you're getting ready to share your body with, your finances with. Hey,
yes,
there is
your
no
life.
question that should be left unasked. None.
And I'm so glad that you said that, because in my opinion, whether or not you have suspicions, you still need to do that. You
Oh
still need
yeah.
to go get your blood work. You still need to go
Yeah.
find family, health, family history. You need to do all of that. And people are not. I mean, they're not even thinking about that, because maybe they don't know, maybe they don't
Mm-hmm.
understand the extent of marriage and what it takes.
Right.
I mean, but that's real. And I'm glad you clarified. No, we're not saying go out and sleep with everybody.
Right.
As you're dating. However, in the book, they just simply, when you're dating people, you're just going out to coffee.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're just
Right.
going out to see a movie. Like, you're not giving your body
Mm-hmm.
away. You're not
Right.
having sex, sleeping around.
Right.
You're not even kissing everybody. Like, that's your. I mean,
Right.
no, all of
Because,
those things, you're
you
setting your
know,
boundaries. You're setting your boundaries.
herpes,
Exactly.
kissing, any kind of body fluid. And
Woo.
I can't get with all these reality shows where, they kissing one girl and in 15 minutes they kissing somebody else. I mean, what are y'all doing? Are y'all using Listerine? Or, I mean, what's happening? I don't get it. But
And the fact of the matter is, too, as a nurse, you already know that even like STIs, some STIs don't even present
mm-hmm.
any
Yeah,
any any
that's right.
symptoms.
They're
They don't
dormant.
present any symptoms. And
Mm-hmm.
then they find out years down the line, oh man, I got this STI, you
Right.
know, or this person had this STI. And sometimes people don't even tell you they
And
got an STI.
if they're older, they still think they call them STDs. So
Mm-hmm.
STI is a new term. They think,
Yeah.
but you're right. I was talking to a gentleman, and intelligent, was checking all the boxes, and had several conversations on the phone for hours and at a time, getting to know, understand, asking all the questions. And then as things began to proceed, he said, I have to tell you something. And he said, I think it's going to be a deal breaker. And I said, well, what is it? He says, I have herpes. I said, dude, don't you think you should have led with that? Like, you should have said that out the gate. Like, hey, I'm going to be transparent. This is not 10 hours later, you know? So I think people, to the folks that are listening, know your numbers, know your blood work, know your status, the HIV, whatever. You can't trust it. Go, like you said, because I think people have the mindset, well, I'm just going to jump the broom. I'm going to get married. I'm going to be spontaneous, and I'll figure all that out later. That's very expensive, not only to your
Oh,
pocket,
yes,
your
yes,
mental status, to your soul. And I heard something
yes.
so beautiful, Essie. Somebody said they want their partner to guard their soul. We hear the song about you can't break my soul, but you have to guard your heart. But wouldn't it be a wonderful blessing to have a partner that loves you enough to help you guard your soul, right? Like, they're not
Mhm,
trying to make your life miserable, make you bitter, make you hateful. They are, as you say, ride or die, they with you. They for the long haul.
mhm.
So are we running out of time? We better get to those other questions.
Well,
But
we,
this
we
is
can
so
get to,
good.
this is really good. This is all about separation and divorce and faith communities. But I might have to invite you back. This is
Absolutely.
so good. This has been a really insightful and just lively conversation. I'm wondering if you can just give some final words to wrap us up. Final words of wisdom. It could be based on what we talked about or whatever you feel that you want to share with the listeners and
Mhm.
um, viewers.
I think one of the other couple of the other questions was how did I deal with the pain and the loss and loneliness. I searched on Meetup group and I found a separation and divorce group at a church locally when I was in Charlotte, and I attended that, and it was very helpful because it came being an analytical mind. I need to put things in writing. I need homework to do. So that was one of the issues when I was working with certain therapists. You know, they just talk and they vent and they talk back at you. But I needed to write things down. I needed homework. I needed to work through the process. One of the other things that I would say is if you know someone that's getting divorced, you don't, unless they tell you every detail. And I was very transparent, but I'm careful not to badmouth or put down my ex partner because they're human, they're a good person. It just didn't work out. And I would say, don't put people in hell because they got a divorce because we don't have a heaven or hell to put anybody in. And
You better preach it.
you don't know what your life is going to, everything could be fine and dandy. You can be married. It's all roses and petals today, but tomorrow you could be sitting right where we are. You could be a divorcee and you don't want anybody to throw you away. And I found that with some of the people in the faith community, which is why I didn't tell anybody. So you kind of have to carry that burden by yourself, go outside the faith community to the folks that are out there that know the details, they know how to help you work through it. I think one of the guys in the group had been married like 4 or 5 times, and I was like, man, he's got to be the marriage guru, or he's not learning because he's not waiting long enough. But I would just say, you are going to go through those phases, and I teach Kubler-Ross's The 5 Stages of Grief. And that is, the person there, you're in denial. You can't believe this happened to you. I can't believe it. I've been in church all my life. I did everything right. How could this happen to me? Why did this happen to you? You're in denial, and then you're angry, and then you're rationalizing, well, maybe I didn't do this right. Maybe I didn't do enough of that, and I didn't give them enough attention, and blah, blah. So you go through, and it's kind of, it's not linear. You don't go through all the phases one at a time, one at a time. You vacillate back and forth, vacillate back and forth. So it's been 3 years now. And, I was very angry at first because I was like, okay, how can they be mad blaming me when I've been the one trying to do all the work, and I've done everything. And I said to people, did you see me do the work? Did you see me try to do everything I can do? And everybody's like, yes, yes, yes. But, in hindsight, what I've grown, the lessons that I've learned is that um, you can do everything in your power as the one party, but it takes two. And God cannot change a person unless they want to be changed. And so your faith is not the only thing that you need. You have to have that commitment. And here's the thing, if somebody truly loves you, they're going to respect you. And if they're to the point where they're disrespecting you and it's become emotional and psychological abuse, it's still abuse. They don't ever have to put their hand on you. But if they're starting to make you wonder, if they're gaslighting you and starting to make you think it's your fault, it's toxic and it's time to go. It's just that simple. And I believe the God that we serve, that is a forgiving God. I didn't go into marriage premeditated saying I'm gonna get a divorce, but it happened. So if God can forgive people for murdering, for adultery, for everything else, surely God can forgive me for getting a divorce and wanting to be happy. Because here's what I do know, Essie. If I hadn't got a divorce, somebody would be in jail. Somebody would be in jail because it would escalate to the point of, I'm not going to let you hit me. If you hit me, I'm going to hurt you or whatever. And then where's my salvation? I'm bitter, I'm hateful, and I could have committed murder and been in jail, right? I'm just being truthful. People don't like to say, I was so angry I could have killed somebody. But that sometimes a person can get you to that place, or you will allow yourself to get to that place. So my thing is just to be encouraged, try the best that you can, seek outside counsel, outside the faith community, get some different perspectives. And at the end of the day, you have to be able to live with yourself, look yourself in the mirror and walk away with some dignity. That would be the thing that I would say. And I know we're going to close in prayer, but again, the fasting and the prayer, and just spend time alone. We don't like to be alone, especially if you've been married for 20 years and that person is always within arm's reach. You got to learn how to go out to dinner alone, pray alone, go to a movie alone, fall in love with yourself, get to know who you are. And that will be my part and final words of wisdom.
Wow, those are some really, really wise words. Thank you so much for sharing. Um, I'm just, I feel so encouraged. I feel so encouraged. I feel like, and hopefully, our listeners and viewers also feel encouraged and strengthened. Dr. Colette, can you just close us out in a word of prayer for our listeners, for those that may be struggling
Yeah.
with the fact that they're separated or divorced, that God would give them strength. And then also for the singles, that they would, have their eyes open, you being single again, and the struggle. It's hard out here in these streets. That they would
Mm-hmm.
that they would have the wisdom as they move forward with faith in the dating scene.
Yes, yes, and just thinking about females, having been in a situation with someone passive, and it's been controversy with the comments that TD Jake said about women being made almost to be men. Is that women be very careful about their feminine energy. If you have to be assertive, you I'm learning how to reconnect to that, to let men open doors for me and to do the things that weren't done before. And so, as we close, Father, we just thank you for this time this evening with Essie and all of her guests here. We thank you for the opportunity to share. We thank you for the transparency. And we ask that you bless those that are listening, those that are watching, so that they will come to know themselves as they get to know you closer. As they draw closer to you, Father, we thank you that you will show them who they are, that you will protect them if they're in a situation of danger and toxicity, that you will surround them with love and people that will support and build them up and not tear them down. And God, we thank you for this opportunity. We thank you for this platform. We thank you for our dear sister, for bringing her to where you have brought her. And I know that if you did it for her, that you can do it for me. And God, I thank you for all of those that desire to be married, that you bless them with their heart's desires, that you help them to take a step back and breathe and just exhale and breathe in your love and your kindness and your gentleness and your wisdom, so that when they make the decision, that there will be no doubt in their mind that they're making the right decision. And even after they make that decision, if it doesn't work out, Father, give them the strength to keep on keeping on. And we thank you for it, and we bless you, and we give you all the praise. In your name we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Amen. Thank you so much, Dr. Colette,
You're
for
so
just
welcome.
being here, and thank you for the prayers. Thank you for the wisdom. I mean, this has just been such a blessing to have this conversation, and I look
Yeah.
forward to continuing our conversation. I might have you back on. This was so
Oh,
good.
I'm at your disposal, whatever you need.
This would be great. And thank you all for tuning in, for this podcast. And I just want to encourage you to keep going. You are not alone. God is still with you. He has not changed his mind or his thoughts about you. You will grow through this. You will heal, and you will learn to love again. And I will see you next time on the Heart to Heart with Essie Faye podcast. I love you, and I will see you then.
Thanks. Bye bye.